Hey guys, so finally, after what felt like years of waiting, the Criterion Dungeon is here. I can't even begin to articulate just how excited I was for this. And I think the developers did an amazing job here. They created a dungeon that is basically a 4-man raid. You know, I always felt like the big hole in 14's endgame, it was in the small group challenging content. And boy, did this fill that hole. I mean, sure, you always had Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, but that wasn't really what I was looking for. With that being said, I am also excited for the new Deep Dungeon as well. Now, of course that wasn't everything. We also got the Variant Dungeon, which was aimed to be a more casual-friendly version of the Criterion Dungeon. But the developers didn't just make it an easier version, it's a vastly different experience. It's a choose-your-own-adventure style dungeon. Basically, what they have done here is they gave us 2 different dungeons using the same location. And for this video, let's take a look at these, starting with the Variant Dungeon. So, like I said before, this is a more casual-friendly version of the dungeon, and it's a choose-your-own-adventure style thing. So, in this version of the dungeon, you are exploring the depths of the Sildine Aqueducts with the ruler of Ul'dah, Nanamo. And you know, I have to say, I had a lot of fun finding all the different ways that you can progress here. Something else that was really cool is that, depending on the choices you make, the boss mechanics would actually change. For example, before one of the bosses you can see a culvert that you have the option to turn, and if you decide to turn it, the mud in the pipes is cleared out. So now the boss won't have access to that mud. This makes the fight a bit easier to deal with, and in fact, Nanamo even hints at you to do this. However, if you ignore the culvert, now the pipes are full of mud, and the boss will use that to his full advantage, placing mud puddles on the floor during certain mechanics, limiting the area that you have to move around in, making the fight, I think, a bit more challenging. It was the little things like that which really made this dungeon come to life for me. And like I said before, it was a lot of fun to discover. Another thing that I really loved here is that they give you so much lore and backstory with this dungeon. So this content comes with a brand new interface called the Survey Record, and every single time you clear a new path, the record is updated with new lore and character backstory. Filling out the survey record made me really want to keep going through the dungeon and finding all the different variations, because I wanted all that backstory and lore. Another cool thing is that some of the survey records even give you clues on how to find other paths. So most of the paths are pretty easy to figure out, you know, like choose a door, go left or right. But some are not that obvious, and I thought it was so cool when I was reading through some of the records, and they provided clues of things that I could try. It made this whole experience really engaging. It was fun finding those clues, and figuring out different ways to proceed. Finally, it's such a relief that this didn't turn out to be just some forced grind. It only took me around 8 hours to get it all done. And by the time I was finished, you know, I felt satisfied, and I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome. You know, I've been burned before where developers felt like they needed to make the content last a very long time, and they did this by making it very grindy. To me, all that does is make content that was once fun become a tedious chore that you now dread having to do. Okay, so that was the Variant Dungeon, so now let's take a look at the Criterion Dungeon. So, the Criterion Dungeons delivered exactly what I was looking for. Challenging 4-man content. This is basically a raid for 4 players. Anyway, so, the developers have stated that they wanted these to be at around the difficulty level of an extreme. And from what I've done thus far, that seems about right. Even the trash mobs in here are no joke. Like, you need to be careful with where you fight them. You want to make sure you are only pulling one at a time, and fighting in an area where there aren't enemies patrolling around. So in fact, my first time in here, we accidentally pulled 2 enemies right at the start, and it was a humbling experience. We were very quickly defeated. They are no joke. As for the bosses, well, I've only gotten up to the second boss so far, but it's been really fun. They have been very challenging, with fun and interesting mechanics, And going at it blind and figuring out all these puzzles has just been so much fun. And I just want to make special mention of the first boss in there, Silky, because I was blown away by the animation. They are just so creative and fun to look at. When you get to look at a mouse become a duster and sweep half of the arena, or float in the air with its tail before ramming forward, it just brings so many smiles. The last thing I wanted to mention is that I really like how, in a smaller setting, how much more impactful your actions feel. This is something that can get lost when you are in a raid with many other players, who can sometimes cover for your mistakes. When it's just the four of you, it's like you are really in the thick of it. I can see how this can also make it very stressful, but I personally thrive the most when I am being stressed out. So I really hope that these are a smashing success, because I think they are awesome. I really want to see these continue on, get more and more of these types of dungeons, however many they can get into an expansion. I know they are planning at least one more for Endwalker. I guess a big question on my mind is, should there be gear rewards for the Criterion Dungeon? Right now it's purely cosmetics, which I am personally fine with. I don't raid to get gear. I like seeing the fights and learning their mechanics. But I do know that getting gear is a huge motivational factor for many players. Then again, if they attach gear to it, then the content would feel required, and be another thing raiders would need to look into doing, and I don't know if that's a good thing either. Anyway, so what did you all think? Did you have fun with these dungeons? Do you want to see more? Do you think there should be gear rewards, or should it be kept purely cosmetic? Let me know down in the comments below. And so that is it for this one. I hope you are all having fun with this new content, and if you liked what you saw, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. And until next time, bye!